So let's check out the screens to find out more.
Hey, we're celebrating Jeff's 20 years of being lead pastor at Chase Oaks, which is so crazy. And so we decided we would do something really fun. And we asked some of you to share stories or moments or quotes about Jeff from the last 20 years that just totally stick out in your mind. And we pulled together a list of some of our favorites, and we're gonna have Jeff read some of them now.
I love how Jeff takes Jesus' mission seriously, but he doesn't take himself seriously. For example, I'll never forget when he prayed at the end of church, and instead of saying amen, he said roll tide. It still makes me laugh. And I'm glad it makes you laugh, but I think Jesus was happy, roll tide. And yes, always roll tide. One time, Jeff and I went to Chick-fil-A, and he ordered a salad, which was great, except he only ate the bacon off the salad. I totally believe that. I do order salads sometimes, and I always regret it 100% after I do. In fact, I had a salad today for lunch, and it was okay, but I was like starving 20 minutes later. The world's messed up. It's a broken, fallen world. Okay, here's another one. I love Jeff's heart for the next generation and for people who don't know Jesus. He is a visionary, and yet he can't find his wallet. That is true. I've always been a person who loses, whether it's keys or wallets or children, I tend to lose them. And that's why you may have seen this before. This is my best purchase I've ever made. This neon green wallet. I just ordered a new one because this one's getting a little bit dirty. And I have not lost this once. And you can see why. Hey, sorry.
Hey,
I think
you forgot your wallet.
I forgot a sandwich. I don't know where I'm.
A sandwich?
I think you
So
carried
there's gonna be a
anything.
sandwich somewhere.
I don't think you carried it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, sorry to.
If I see sandwich, I'll bring it to you, but
Okay.
I don't think.
One word to describe Jeff: authentic. Two words to describe Jeff: authentically goofy. Well, those were two good words. I do want to be authentic, and yes, I am goofy. I just want to say that Jeff has been the lead pastor here longer than I've been alive. Wow. Cheers to another 20. That hurts a little bit.
Jeff, we love you. Thank you so much for being here for 20 years and all the life change that you have made possible. We love you so much.
Congratulations. I knew Jeff had lost his wallet multiple times before that green wallet. I knew he had lost his kids multiple times, lost keys, couldn't find a car, missed exits, but I never knew he lost a sandwich. So there you go. Just add it to the list. I want to welcome you. My name is Jack, one of the pastors here. Welcome those of you who are watching on another campus, those watching online. Really, really glad that you joined us today. I have known Jeff for 38 years. And I realize for many of you, you are not 38 years old, and so that is a long time, but 38 years we go back. I met him when he was a freshman in college, 1986, and he was moving into his dorm. He and I met, and that year we did some student ministry together, and it was just a phenomenal year. I was a senior, he was a freshman. We served at a church working with kids, and great, great times. I moved to Dallas. Me and my wife Susie moved to Dallas then. And Jeff finished college, he met Christy, got married. Then they moved out here, and we always said, hey, it would be awesome someday if we could actually serve together. And believe it or not, we ended up at the same church, and we ended up serving together in middle school for 3 years. And he and I and a lot of young adults led middle school for 3 years. Then when Jeff graduated from seminary, he and Christy moved away for a year. Then they came back, worked in adult ministry. And then in 2004, Jeff became the lead pastor here at Chase Oaks. And that was just a little bit over 20 years ago. Hard to believe. I want to highlight just a couple of things that are true about Jeff. They were true then when I first met him and still true today. The first one is he has a deep passion for people who don't yet follow Christ. That was true in student world. That was true as he's pastored us all along the way. It's true with his extended family, and he saw his family come to Christ. But that is a deep, deep passion and a deep conviction, and it just permeates throughout our staff, it permeates throughout our church, and that's why we are who we are. He has a commitment to communicate truth in a conversational way, a relevant way, in an inspiring way, and not a shameful way, and a super helpful way. And that's why you come here, because God is using him and other staff to do that in that manner. And finally, I would just say, I just thank God for his consistent character. Character is, it's a rarity in many ways and in many circles, and I'm just so thankful for that. One quick story about Jeff. When he was in middle school ministry with me and we were doing this together, he took his small group. These are middle school kids, and he took them to downtown Dallas. And he went up on top of Reunion Tower, and he prayed over the city with them. And he taught them to pray just for people who don't know Christ. And what's amazing to me is that was a long time ago. And he was not the lead pastor. He wasn't doing what he's doing today. And God put him in this place to where now he's leading multiple campuses throughout the city. And it's just such a great answer to prayer that there he was teaching those kids to pray for a city. And then God put him in the city. And here's what God is doing. So I'm so thankful for him. I've got tons of funny stories. You can catch me afterwards and I can tell you all kinds of goofy stories. But so many impactful things that God has done through Jeff in his ministry here. So I want you to join me in, I'm sure you're uncomfortable by now, Jeff. I want you to join me in welcoming a great friend, a humble, impactful leader, and why not, our favorite Alabama fan, right? Jeff Jones.
Thank you, Jack. Love you, man. Thank you, guys. So, thanks for all those nice things you said. And just know that for Christy and me, these last really 35 years now, we've been part of this church on staff in one way or another, 20 years in this role. My whole career, it's been just the privilege of our lives to be able to serve this mission and this church family. And if you pinch us very hard, we will bleed Chase Oaks. We just love this place. And years ago, God used it to, I came here disillusioned with church as a concept. And God used it to re-illusion me. And I'll be forever grateful. And so when Gene Getz, who's founded the church, asked if I would consider stepping into the lead role, what I said to him is, Gene, I don't care what it is, what my role is. If it's washing the windows or being the next senior pastor, if I can progress the mission of this place, I'm in. And the second you decide there's somebody better to do this job, it might hurt my feelings, but that's okay. Because the mission of this place is way more important than that. And what I appreciate so much about these years of so many things that God has done, but is you. Because you're a congregation that leans in, that is open to what God wants, and is willing to lean forward and to try to capture his heartbeat in your life and take whatever step God wants. I've never sensed a spirit of like, okay, yeah, tell me what I don't already know. Because that would stink. So thanks for being who you are. And I brag on you everywhere I go, all over the place, and because give honor to whom honor's due. So thank you for who you are. So with all that, today we start a new series called Ripple Effect. And it's about living the kind of impact that God, I believe, wants all of us to have. And so when you think about ripple effect just as an image, you see the water behind me, the still water, and picture a mountain lake. Got that in your mind? A mountain lake, the mountain, you go up, it's totally serene, and you go to that mountain lake. Now, I don't know what you would do. I know what I would do. I would take a minute just to kind of soak it in. I might pray a little bit in that serenity, and then you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna find a rock and throw it in. Because how can you not do that? In fact, I'm gonna do it right now. Here we go. Let's just act like I'm throwing a rock. Isn't that cool? That's pretty awesome. Our team did that. Let's do that. Can we do it one more time? Oh, I could do this all day, just right there without real water. But I love a talented team like that. And there is something, right, about there's a little thrill in doing that and seeing the ripple effect. But that little thrill is nothing compared to what God, I believe, has implanted in each one of us. And that is a desire for real and lasting impact. To be able to look back at the end of our lives and realize, man, we have had a ripple effect. Our world is better. Lives are better. We all want that. And today and in this series, we're gonna talk about how to live that out. But today is really key because today is kind of the basic idea that we're gonna play out the rest of the series and make very, very practical. Because today we're gonna see, I think, the most essential difference between people who have an outsized impact and most people who don't. This is the difference between churches that have an outsized impact in the world and most churches who really just don't. And it's a certain mindset. It's the mindset of Jesus, but it's a certain mindset that then informs every decision, every priority, everything that we do. And with this mindset, we will have an outsized impact. Without this mindset, we won't. It's really that simple. And we're gonna see this mindset played out in Jesus because it's his mindset that then he passes on to those of us who follow him. But I want to illustrate it since this is, we're talking about 20 years anniversary. I want to illustrate it with an iconic moment in the life of our church 20 years ago. So in January 2004 is when I took the baton. In November 2004, Gene Getz, our founding pastor, said, hey, we had this conversation that we had actually more time in the transition. But he decided, hey, you know what? This has gone quicker than we expected. We need to do it now. We don't need to wait. You need to become the lead pastor. That was great, whatever. And so in January 2004, we did that. And in March 2004, I'm with our elder board. Elders are a biblical way to talk about a board of directors with some extra spiritual responsibilities on top of that. So I'm with our elder board in March, sort of an emergency elder retreat because it happened quicker. We weren't completely ready. And we needed to get ready to say, well, what is our vision for this next era? So this was an important retreat. It was at somebody's lake house. It was, so on Saturday, I sent everybody out to just do a listening exercise to say, man, let's just go out with God for a few hours and pray and write down what you believe God is impressing on you. And I gave them some things to read and consider too, and sent them away to just hear from God. And I did too. And then we were gonna have a discussion the rest of that retreat about our vision over the next era. Now, I felt pretty good about all that because I already had my answer. And I knew that everybody was gonna be looking to me, right? So as the visionary leader of the church, working with them, because we need a leader, otherwise it's a bad date, a weekend like that. A bad date is like when, hey, where do you wanna go? I don't care, where do you wanna go? Well, what do you like? I like everything. Well, I like everything. You don't want that, right? And so I had an answer that we could then play off of, and I felt really good about it. I don't know, and so it was all pretty, and I had all the copies and all the files and all that. So for me, you're just gonna be spending a couple hours with God, but I didn't really need to think about the vision of our church because I already had it. And so until I went away by myself in my car overlooking a place on the lake, and I said, well, at least open it up and pray about it. And so I opened it up. I thought the sense I would get from God is, oh, I'm so impressed. In all of church history, I've never seen anything this wonderful. And that is not at all what happened. As I opened this up and looked at it, it's just like, oh man, this is flat. Whatever the vision for our church is, it's not this. I mean, the truth is, it was all good things, but it was sort of everything. In vision, when you try to be everything, it's sort of nothing. And that's what it was. And so I started to panic a little bit, but it's okay, because I've got a few hours, and God is God. He'll speak and impress in my, in my heart and mind, and I've got a notepad, and it was like a block where just nothing was happening, nothing. Every idea was just, so much so that we get down to about 10 minutes before it's time to go back to the elder retreat, and everybody's gonna be looking to me to say, well, Jeff, how about you? And I was gonna have to say, I got nothing, which is a terrible way to start this, run. And so I got really frustrated. And so I said out loud in my car, I was like, God, you're obviously not interested in helping me here. This is your church. It's your vision I want. And I got nothing. It's gonna be the worst elder retreat ever. And, but that seems to be the way you want it. So I quit. I don't mean quit my job. I quit trying to do this. So I'm just gonna listen to the radio. And I started my car, turned on the radio. That was set to 92.5, classic rock station, because that's what Jesus would do. And I don't think this is accidental. The second I turned on the car is the second a song started that I had never really keyed in on before. It's a Pink Floyd song, but it actually changed everything. And I want you to hear it, and then we'll talk about it.
on the turning away from the pale and downtrodden, and the words they say which we won't understand. Don't accept that what's happening is just a case of other suffering. Or you'll find that you're joining in the turning away. It's a sin that somehow light is changing to shadow and casting its shroud over all we have known. Unaware how the rains have grown, driven on by a heart of stone. We could find that we're all alone in the dream of the proud, on the wings of the night. As the daytime is stirring, where the speechless unite in a silent accord. Using words we will find a strange, mesmerized as they light the flame. Feel the jingle, the chain on the wings of the night. No more turning away from the weak and the weary. No more turning away from the coldness inside. Just a world that we all must share. It's not enough to just stand and stare. Is it only a dream that will be no more turning?
Thank you, guys. Johnny, the guitar player, it's his birthday today, sharing it with us. So that's what I heard in the car. And if you wonder if God can speak through Pink Floyd, I'd say yeah, sure can, because that's what happened. I mean, really, I'm not an emotional person. I've even gone to counseling to try to feel bad emotions, negative emotions, and I quit because it was a bummer. And so but in that moment, I was emotional and done in. Because what I sense God speaking into my heart and mind is, Jeff, I don't care about the details of whatever vision statements you come up with. I just want you to be the church that shares my heart. I just want you to be the church of the no more turning away. Because right around your church are hundreds of thousands of people who do not know me, who have no idea that I came for them, that I created them, that I love them, that I want to know them, I want to change their lives forever. They don't know all that. They don't know how much I love them. And that's why you're there. And all around your church are thousands and thousands of people who are crying out to me for help with physical needs and emotional needs and relational needs. And they don't know if I exist. And if I do, if I give a flip, if I care. And I do. And that's why you're there. And would you be the church, and then no more turning away, but turning towards and the energy out to the community and the energy out, because that's the mission that gave birth to the church. Would you do that? And I came back to that elder meeting and said exactly that, guys. I don't know details we can work out, but what I know is we've got to be the church, and increasingly so, of the no more turning away. And I believe that as solidly now as I did then. And that is what we always, over these last 20 years, all we've tried to do as much as possible is increasingly become that church. Because this is his church, it's not ours. We don't make up what we want to be. The way a friend of mine says it is, it's not that the church has a mission, it's that the mission has a church. Because before God called the church into existence, there was the mission that Jesus came with to connect with those who don't know him and to bring restoration and hope to a broken world. And that's why we're here. We're not here for us. We're here for that mission. And it's that basic mindset, an externally focused mindset, that changes everything. That really is the difference between somebody who has an outsized impact, or a church that has an outside impact, a family that has an outside impact, and those who don't. It's either my life's about me or it's about something else. It's about something bigger. It's about a mission. It's about God's heart for people outside of myself. And today I want us to make sure we just sink that mindset in, because as easy as it is to even maybe understand the mindset, it is so hard to have it and to live with it, and once we do, to keep it, because there's a gravitational pull. It's just our sin nature towards self. And religious groups will become internal the second they stop focusing on avoiding that. It just happens. And that's what happened in Jesus's world. When you look at the life of Jesus, the religious people, the Pharisees and religious leaders, if you've been around church a while, when you hear Pharisee and all that, you're like, boo, they're terrible people. Nobody saw them as terrible people. They weren't terrible people. They were the good people. They were religious people. They spent all their lives trying to be good, trying to please God, all of that. And yet they rejected Jesus. And why? Because of a clash of mindsets. We're gonna see Jesus's mindset and his urgency for those who were disconnected from God. But the Pharisees had just a very different mentality. And for them, Jesus was so confusing that if he really was the Messiah, the one sent from God, how could he be? Because he hung out with all the wrong people. And you might think that, if Jesus came here, claimed to be God, which we believe he was in human form, and that became more pointed too. And then the Pharisees were like, well, if that's true, I don't think so, because look who he hangs out with. Because you would think that he would hang out with the good people or the religious people, maybe set up shop in the temple and hang out with them and be worshiped and adored. And that'd be a very comfortable thing, but that's not what he did. In fact, he spent his time with the irreligious, with those who were not yet connected to God. And that's why the Pharisees, the religious leaders, called him a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Tax collectors are not just IRS agents. In that day, they were more like the mafia. They were extortionists. They were not good people. They weren't doing good stuff. But Jesus moved toward them and spent time with them. And when they called him a friend of tax collectors and sinners, Jesus said, yeah, I am. But for them, that was a term of derision. Like you see that in Mark chapter 2, where it says, while Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house, who was a tax collector, Matthew, that he calls to be one of the 12, many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. I think it's easy to think in the life of Jesus, he had his followers of religious people, and then he would do these little mission trips and hang out with people who were far from God. But that's not the case. That many people who were far from God were among his followers, open, but still in the life that they're in. It wasn't just that he occasionally, did these little things, but really he just hung out with the religious people. He hung out with people who followed him, the sinners and the tax collectors and so on. And that was so confounding and confusing in this clash of mindsets that it came to a head multiple times. But one of those times is Luke chapter 15. And it leads to Jesus telling a few stories, one very famous story, to try to help religious people like us, and some of you are not, and you're new here and all that, but a lot of us have been around a little while in church, to help people like us get it. And so in Luke 15, we'll read it. And here's the occasion of the story in Luke 15, 1-3. Now the tax collectors and sinners, now we're all sinners, okay? But for the Pharisees, they had a special category. We're all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and teachers of the law muttered. Great word, mutter. We don't use it much anymore, to complain under your breath. And it reminds me, if you haven't called your mother in a while, call her today. Call your mother. She'll be happy. But what were they muttering? This man welcomes sinners and eats with them. Now, eating with people in that culture was a big deal. It was acceptance. So Jesus told them this story because they were upset that he hung around with all the wrong people. He wants to get them to understand it. And actually tells 3 stories to illustrate the same thing, 2 quick ones. The first one is about a woman, actually it's the second one, is about a woman who loses a coin, a very valuable coin, in her house, can't find it anywhere. It's devastating financially, just like, what are we gonna do? And all she can do, if you've ever lost something really valuable, that's all she can think about until she finds it. And she turns her house upside down, finally finds it. When she does, she rejoices, calls friends together, says, you wouldn't believe what happened. And that's the story. The second story is a story about a shepherd who has 100 sheep. And he counts at night, and there are 99 in the fold, not 100, which means one is missing. And instead of just saying, well, whatever, I've got 99, he leaves the 99 and goes after the one and searches and searches and searches, can't think about anything else until he finds that one and brings it into safety. Because that's the heart of a shepherd. And when he does so, he finds it, he rejoices, invites all his friends, and they rejoice with him. And then the third story, which is maybe tied with the Good Samaritan story, if you know what that is, with famous Jesus stories. This one, the story of the prodigal son. It's an incredible story, so simple but so powerful, about a father who has a young adult son, actually has 2, but has a young adult son that decides that he wants out of the family, doesn't want to be in where people lived in extended households, doesn't want to do that anymore, wants to go off on his own and do his own thing. And he asks something very audacious, and that is, give me my share of the inheritance now, because I'm going to get it one day anyway. You're going to die, Dad, one day, and I just want it now, and you'll never see me again. And the dad decides, okay, I'll do that. Heartbroken, does that. The son goes away, squanders that money on stupidity and sin, becomes homeless and penniless and desperate, and decides to try to come back home. He knows he's disavowed himself as a son, but maybe he could be hired on as a servant because he knows how well servants live in his father's house. And so he goes back knowing that he deserves to be chased away, but not knowing what will happen. But what he doesn't understand is the whole point of the story, and that is the heart of the father. Because what he doesn't know is that the father has been waiting and praying and hoping against hope that one day his son would return. And every day he goes out and he looks across the horizon and hoping that one day he's gonna see his son. And day after day after day after day after day after day after week after month, nothing. But one day he sees somebody coming down the road. And as that somebody gets closer, he's thinking, that could be. He sort of looks like, and as he gets closer, he realizes, I think it is. And he runs, sprints to the son, and he throws his arm around him and he says, welcome back. And the son starts his little speech. I'm so sorry, I don't deserve anything. Could I be a servant? I know I'm not a son anymore. And the dad is like, what are you talking about, not a son anymore? You're my son. I've been looking for you every day and you're back. And he orders that a signet ring be placed on his hand, which is the way they did business, reinstating him. He puts a fancy robe on him to signify his place in the family. And he throws a party for all of his friends and all the family friends to celebrate that this son that was lost is now returned. And it shows the heart of the father. And that would be a great story, but that's not where it ends. The real point of the story hadn't even happened yet, because it's a contrast of mindsets between the heart of the father and the heart of someone else. And that someone else is the older brother, because there's another brother. And that brother in the story represents the Pharisees and the religious leaders and their mindset. So the older brother is invited to the party but doesn't go. And so the father goes out to find, because he loves that son too, to find the older son and said, please, you gotta come to the party. And your brother was lost and now he's back. And the older brother is the one who did everything right. He didn't go off and squander anything. He did everything he was supposed to do, the way he was supposed to do it. He was the good son. And so he's just bothered that now we're throwing a party for this guy who's been a goober, and now we're acting like everything's okay all of a sudden. And that's what he says. I'm not going to the party. You've never thrown a party for me. And I've done everything right. This should be about me. This should be my party. And the father's like, don't you get it? Like, he was lost and he's your brother and he's back. And of course we're gonna celebrate and all that. And it's a clash of mindsets. Now you can understand the heart of the father, and that's the genius part of the story, because it's such a common thing. If you've ever been a parent, and even if you haven't, you can imagine this. If you've ever been a parent who has lost a child, and we joked earlier about me losing children, but it's not funny when it happens. Caleb, our youngest, was very easily lost because he was a runner. He was, very energetic. There's a lot of Caleb stories in our church even. And he's very independent and no fear. And so you had to watch him all the time. In fact, after a while, we were one of the first people Christy put it together, a little leash system where we had him on a leash in public, and people would look at us so terrible. And now they have you can buy these little cute backpacks that look like a teddy bear and has a thing. People, oh, that's so cute. But back then, if you did that to a preschooler, it'd be like, they would call 911 and report you and all that. So that was us. But the reason was because we didn't want to lose him. And that happened one time at the fair. And we lost him. And it was like he's here, and then a second later, we don't know where he is at all. And we were looking for him for maybe 30 minutes. Longest 30 minutes of my life. And some people came around and helped, and most people didn't, blew it off. And I'll be forever grateful for those who shared my mindset and who actually helped and got it and had some urgency. And that's the point of the story. It's why Jesus, after the story about the shepherd, gives the punchline. He says, in the same way, there's more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. What Jesus is saying is what makes heaven light up is not just when those who are found are in the pen and celebrate together. That's great. But what really makes heaven light up, because of the heart of the Father, is when those who are not connected to him connect. That's what makes heaven rejoice. That's when it's a party. And that's what church is designed to be, is to reflect his heart, to share his urgency. I mean, there's a lot of things we do as a church, and it's wonderful as, you know, for those of us who are here, found people, so to speak, connected to him people, that we can strengthen our connection together. And that's beautiful, that's wonderful. But the church primarily isn't just a place for the already found to hang out. It's not primarily just a worship concert or a social club for the already convinced, or a Bible study for the already convinced, or even though all those things are good and wonderful and it's part of growing, but the church is primarily a movement built around a mission fueled by the passionate love of God for everybody who's not yet connected to him. It's that mission that gives birth to the church. And we're the ones who are called to, as we said earlier, to be the church of the no more turning away, and to be people in the no more turning away, to turn to people in need, to turn people who don't know him yet, and to do life and do church and so on, and with that in mind. The way we say that around here, one of our DNA statements is, this is not our party. And what that means is, it's not about us. It's not a party for religious people. This is not our party. It's the Father's party. Thrown for, not just for, you know, I mean, we get to be part of it and all that, but it's because of his heart for those who aren't here yet. And that's what makes him rejoice, when we understand that and do life and do church and do family that way. Because of the urgent love of God for everybody who's yet to connect. And if you read into that statement, if you read further, it says we design every part of Chase Oaks to reflect that. To not only be engaging for those of us who are found already, but for those who have yet to be, for those who aren't here yet. And if you wonder why we do certain things the way we do it, the way we do church services or choose songs or the way we do anything in our church, and you wonder, well, that's interesting, why are they doing that? It probably has a lot to do with this. We want to be hospitable and do everything we can to build connections to those who are outside and make them realize, no, we want you to be insiders, because that's God's heart. We want to remove barriers of connection and build every connection we can. And so sometimes people wonder, well, why do you do that kind of pre-service music in the lobby? Or why do you do those kind of songs? Or why do you do that? And it's that. But the only thing we're told in the New Testament about how to do church services in 1 Corinthians 14, we're told almost nothing. But the one thing, the big thing that we're told is, hey, when you do it, stop doing it in a way that feels good for you. Because there were some things they were doing that were putting off outsiders, and seekers is the two words that are used in that passage. And you're freaking them out, and it's disconnected. Stop doing that. Is to do everything we do, not just for us, but in light of those who aren't here yet. And think about it. If you and I share that urgency and share that heart and share that mindset, because that's the mission that God's up to, then we get to be part of it. And those are the people and those are the churches with the greatest ripple effect. And it's easy to preach about it, but it's not easy to live this way. Because just because of our sinful nature, any religious environment will become an insider religious environment like that. And it just makes sense, right? You build it around those who are paying the bills. But it frustrates the heart of God because of his heart. And that's what this is about. It's not our party, it's his party. And it's such a privilege to get to give and serve and be part of this, because we get to join his mission. So let's think about that a little bit. In this series, that's what we're gonna be talking about, is how to make this really practical. To say, how can we actually live this way? What does it look like to live with this mindset at school, at work, in our neighborhoods, wherever God has placed us individually? And what would it look like for us as a church to live this way? That's what the series is about. And there's a tug in all of us, even when you do a series on external impact and outreach, there's part of us, it's just the way it is. Part of us are like, oh man, I'd rather do a series on like how to make my relationships better, or how to make my life happier. And then there's a part of us that's like, no, I really do want to be people of impact, right? There's this little tug. And what Jesus let us know is that actually the only way to find that happiness of life and that joy that we all want is to give your life away for something bigger, for a bigger mission. And he invites us in. He could push us out of the way. He probably should, because we just screw it up, but he doesn't, because he loves us and wants to engage us in that mission. And so that series that's what it's about. So I'm gonna encourage you to come to each week of the series because it all builds on itself. And then through this series, we're also gonna be going through a season that I think is easy to have outsized impact because it's the holidays. And so when you came in today, you got this little blue piece of paper that talks about it says three things: donate, serve, invite. Think of these as like 3 rocks to throw into the water. I don't have water behind me anymore, okay? So think about 3 rocks that you can throw in to make a ripple effect. There's a donate rock, a serve rock, and invite rock. And part of this is as we go through the holidays, want to give you the heads up because there's a lot of opportunity to do stuff. We want you to know what's coming so that you don't hear one thing one week and think, oh, okay, good, I'll do that or I'll give to that. And then the next week you hear about something else. You're like, oh man, I just did it, and now this is everything, okay? So on the donate part, in addition to our regular donation, as we give, so many people give proportionally to our general fund and think about year-end giving and all that, and then we've got Reimagine. There's a lot going on right now for generosity opportunity. But in addition to that, you're gonna hear about these 3 other things: the Gifts for Good, Local Good Pantry, and Global Fund, that we'll have the opportunity over these holidays to be generous and to be a blessing. And so pray about that. Choose one of them and say, man, I would love to, I think for our family, and talk about it as a family. And let your kids know, hey, we're talking about that. Like, let's do this together. Same thing with serving. You'll see the serving opportunities that are there that are unique to this season. And if you go through this holiday and choose to serve as a single or couple or family, I promise you, it'll be way richer, better, more joyful than if you don't, right? Because that'll be the things your kids remember more than anything, for example. So find a way to serve. And then invite. There's not a better invitational opportunity than the holidays in our culture. Because in our culture, like even Easter, as important as that is to the Christian faith, the most important event of the Christian faith, if you're not a church person, Easter is kind of a religious thing. But Christmas is for everybody. And people are looking for stuff to do at Christmas. And therefore our Christmas, the things that you see there, as well as our Christmas services, are just perfect ways to invite. So think about in that rock, just think, okay, who are the people that I'm inviting? Who are the people we want to invite? We invited somebody today that aren't ready to come to church yet. They're just too new in that relationship, but they're willing to go to lunch. And that's great, so we'll go to lunch. And we're praying that maybe we'll get them to the Christmas service too, because they have no idea that a church like this exists. And I have no clue. They won't see it coming in a good way. And so you pray about yours too. So through the series and through this season, we're gonna be looking at what it really means to live this way, to share the heart of the Father, to share his urgency, to live with this mindset. And like I said earlier, when we lost Caleb and most people just blew us off and ate their funnel cake or whatever instead of helping, I get it. They're living their life, but there were a few people who stopped what they were doing and interrupted their life at the fair to say, hey, we're gonna help. We're not gonna quit looking until we find him. We don't even know him, but we're not gonna quit until we look, until we find him. And I gotta tell you, I still feel emotional, grateful for those people. And when we found him, it was a little party, not just with us, but with all those who helped that we didn't even know until that day. And that's what it means to be people who understand it's not our party, it's the Father's party. And to be the people in church of the no more turning away. Let's pray together. God will help us be that. Father, I pray that you would help us resist the gravitational pull to an insider-focused life, an insider-focused church. And we know the second we stop praying and focusing on this, we're already drifting that way. And so God, would you help us to continue, just keep up with your heart, keep up with your passion, and to live that way. And I do pray for this season that it would be a really impactful season, and you would guide us to be people who have a massive ripple effect. We thank you that you want to use broken people like us to bring your restoration to this broken world. In Jesus' name, Amen.